We have been told that 2 people will be going into the Hall of Fame.
Damn it.
That's good. Well, that's...
I don't have a
That
good
means
feeling
that
about
Larry Walker is in the class of 2020.
Wow.
The pride of Maple Ridge, BC is in the Hall of Fame. Initial reactions, Jeff Blair and Shai Davidi.
I want to see the percentage of votes that he got, but because to get in, he had to do something that hasn't been done since like 1948. He had to go from 22% to 75% in 4 years. That does not happen. And it's great.
And at one point, just under 11% of the vote. And I think that transformation in the span of 6 years is absolutely remarkable. And the majority of the anonymous ballots that were out there were least likely to vote for him.
I got the number, guys. 76.6% of the vote. He got in by 6 votes.
That doesn't matter anymore.
Whatever, baby. Larry Walker is a Hall of Famer. Congratulations to Larry Walker. This is a good day, Timmy. This is a good day.
We're all, he might not be unanimous, but we are unanimous at this table that the other Hall of Famer will be Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
I'm still holding it. Hold on. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced.
So let's continue the conversation on Larry Walker. This is, I don't think I've ever seen it, and you guys might know the numbers, to go from 10.2% 6 years ago to this spot. Has it ever been done in Hall of Fame history?
Off the top of my head, I can't say. I mean, Tim Raines also had a very meteoric rise. And it's interesting because earlier in the day, Larry Walker himself seemed convinced that he wasn't going to get it. And maybe that was just him potentially bracing himself for the ultimate disappointment. But I think that there's so much against him in this little span of the voters who were picking at this little flaws that you thought there might be enough to keep him out of the Hall of Fame.
This from Steve Fellon of Sportsnet Stats. Walker is the 6th player to be elected to the Hall of Fame after having a 40% jump in votes over a 2-year span. Herb Pennock in 1948. Hank Greenberg in 1956, Joe Cronin in 56, Pie Traynor in 48, Luis Aparicio in 84, Larry Walker, the 6th player to make that jump. That's analytics, man. Analytics did it for Larry Walker.
And what's with Expos getting in right at the wire?
Yeah.
Right? Tim Raines a couple of years ago, the huge movement. He eventually, The Rock got in. Larry Walker at the wire under exceptional numerical circumstances here, considering where he was a few years ago. This is a young man who was not drafted into Major League Baseball. This is a guy who is self-made in a lot of ways. I didn't have the pleasure of covering Larry enough in his career. Jeff, I know you were there a lot.
Yeah, I saw him in his.
What are your emotions right now seeing him go in?
I'm thrilled for Canadian baseball. He's an integral part of Canadian sports history and Canadian baseball history, and he's just, the reason so many good things are happening to baseball in Canada right now is because of the good work Greg Hamilton and the folks at Baseball Canada do, the support of the alumni. Larry Walker's one of that. But I think in a lot of ways it goes back to Larry Walker. I think Larry Walker for baseball is what Vince Carter is to basketball in this country. I really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the generation of players that followed him, led by Justin Morneau in particular, they were groomed by him. Larry Walker went out of his way to look out for them, and it really fostered the spirit of care that you see amongst Canadian baseball players. It really is a fraternity. That can be a bit of a cliche. We say that a lot, but you do see Canadians looking out for one another, trying to forge a bond, an enduring bond within the game. And a lot of that traces back to Larry Walker because he didn't have that on his way up.
No, and I always tell people this story. Baseball lost its Olympic status a few years ago. It lost its federal funding as a result of that. Members of alumni from Baseball Canada, guys like Larry Walker and Justin Morneau, they cut checks to help the teams keep going. They cut checks so that guys could go down to the Dominican Republic with the national junior team. Yeah. And it's not just those guys like Pete Orr, guys' names you wouldn't necessarily think of. These guys contributed money in addition to time. So Shai's right. It's a real community. And I'll tell you, there'll be a lot of parties tonight. there'll be a lot of parties.
No doubt.
across the country.
No doubt.
Across the
Absolutely.
country. I just wanted to pass along that Derek Jeter was one vote shy
Okay.
of unanimous.
Now, okay,
at
let-
Colin, there was going to be
99.7.
one
That's
person
so
with
who's
an
the
axe to
guy?
grind.
We have to. Shai and I had this discussion.
Was it not Joel Sherman?
I know. Shai and I had this discussion. I said out there. Shai said to me,
It
do you
wasn't.
think, do you-
It wasn't? Okay.
No, he had him on.
he said to me, "Do you think anybody won't vote for him?" Mike Schmidt got in, and was one vote away from a unanimous pick, and it was a Philadelphia beat writer who didn't vote for him because he hated him.
Hated him, yeah.
And I said to Shai at some point, mark my words, we don't know who, but at some point somebody went up to talk to Derek Jeter, and Derek just looked at him and said, I don't got time. And that guy said, all right, screw you. I'm going to get back at you.
Maybe he didn't get a gift basket.
Tim, I
Or she.
got some other percentages here that the table and people watching and listening may be interested in. Kurt Schilling goes from 60% to 70% on the ballot. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds last year were at 59% roughly each. Clemens goes up to 61. They both went up. Clemens goes up to 61. Bonds just moves up to 60.
They have 2
both
years left.
Correct. Both have 2 years left on the ballot. Again, this is Larry Walker's day, but there's a lot of moving parts here with this Hall of Fame vote. I am still of the belief Clemens and Bonds are going to be Hall of Famers within the next couple of years. Am I alone in that, Timmy? Did you agree with that?
I think they will be. I think that baseball, and I'd like to ask these guys this question. I wrote it down on my. It to me, I can almost draw a line of the exception of cheating in baseball to what we saw. I feel like there's some hypocrisy going on in all of the people yelling and screaming about what the Astros did, and then handing a vote to guys that used. Do you feel that you can see that line and that baseball either has to draw a line in the sand, or is that up to, because what I've gotten is, how can you not have the best hitter and the best pitcher in your shrine? And it's because they cheated the game.
Well, I mean, that's an argument that I make in voting for Bonds and Clemens. I mean, I think you look at them, and the game from the mid-'80s to the mid-2000s revolved around both those two players. And to me, that's what separates them from some of the other guys. And look, we don't have all the answers, but I think you can look at the body of work over the course of their careers and say there seems to be a demarcation point from when they were using steroids to when they weren't. And the body of work pre what we suspect was when they were enhanced by illegal substances or banned substances is still substantial enough that it's Hall of Fame trajectory. Yeah. And then you factor all that in, you factor in the wider context that, wasn't just them alone. I mean, they were doing what they were doing against a lot of guys who were using the same
Brett
things as them.
Boone was hitting bombs. He's 108 pounds soaking wet.
Listen,
we all know what was going on.
I made a deal with myself that after Guillermo Mota, who was 6'6" and about 205 pounds, and a pitcher who converted to shortstop pitcher, whichever way he went, when he failed the drug test, I made a deal with myself that I would never say player X never used drugs. That's why I have no problem voting for those guys. I will never say that a player, because I just don't know. Because guys that I thought didn't use it ended up in the Mitchell report. So I just don't know.
I don't know when you can say a guy used and when he didn't use, if his head grew, all that stuff, because I've seen 170-pound users in my history who were strong as hell, and you'd look at them and never see them. And if you want to throw Boone into that mix, but don't you think that the allowance or the look the other way or the I'll vote for them has an influence on the cheaters in the game now?
The difference, I would say, with the Astros, Red Sox, the commissioner sent a letter to the Astros and said, cease and desist. And they kept doing it. At no point did Bud Selig, I don't think, say to the players, stop doing steroids. It wasn't quite as clear-cut.
Again, Larry Walker is a Hall of Famer. Derek Jeter, by one vote, is not a unanimous Hall of Famer.
Sorry, that's
the breaking news of the hour. Kurt Schilling needs 75%
like
to get in.
Hanging on to that.
I almost want to miss out by a vote than be unanimous. Is that not cooler?
It's absolutely perfect.
It's
to be
amazing.
honest.
Unfortunately, though, for Larry Walker, the dominant story is going to be that Derek Jeter was not a unanimous pick.
Well, not everywhere.
Not on this show, because Larry Walker is going to join us.
Not
I just
north
saw
of the
him
border.
on MLB Network. And
Excellent.
a little later on, Larry Walker will join us. We will discuss his enshrinement in Cooperstown.
Shai Davidi and Jeff Blair joining us, two men with Hall of Fame votes. In 2018, Jeff Blair was inducted, by the way, into the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame for his work in the media in this country.
I didn't get 76% in that vote. I've seen the results.
Whatever.
But
Shai,
then with my
you're
drug past,
too young to get stuff like that. You'll get there one day. So again, to echo what Tim just said, Larry Walker will be joining. You guys will stick around for that, hopefully?
Sure.
You guys are kind enough? Perfect.
Not everyone, though, will be able to stick around. So if you want to hear from Larry Walker, if you're listening on Sportsnet 590 and The Fan, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
If you're watching on TV right now, you'll have to flip over to Sportsnet 360 to see that interview with Larry Walker, because Hockey Central is coming up in about 5 minutes' time.
What did we learn today, gentlemen? What did we take away, aside from the obvious and the celebration surrounding Canadian baseball and Larry Walker? What's the takeaway? That Coors Field isn't the impediment we thought it was?
No, I mean, I still think the fact that it was this close suggests that the electorate isn't fully moving with the times as much as it should be. I mean, and to me, I mean, it shouldn't have even come to this. Like, I think if you're looking at him from traditional counting stats and, you know, the old school points of view, he checks all the boxes. With analytics, he checks all the boxes. And I think that it almost took the analytics to make the old school people perhaps appreciate what their eyes were telling them, which is really odd because usually the eye test set is pretty set in its ways. But maybe the electorate is moving fast at a faster pace than I might have expected. And you asked earlier whether Bonds and Clemens were going to get in. And there's not a lot of runway. And that 15% that they're lacking, I think, is going to be tough for them to gain. But maybe the fact that enough people move towards Walker to get him in this vote, perhaps that bodes well for Bonds and Clemens and says they may move enough and the electorate may change over enough in the next 2 years to get them in as well.
What I want to know is how many Canadian voters voted this year.
You mean
Walker won by 6 votes. Right. I would love to know how many Canadian voters there were this year, because it's not just. I know they called the voting group a little bit, but that would be fascinating to know. I mean, it's great. I'm really happy. So now we wait until Joey Votto retires and comes up.
Yeah, I mean, he's
eligible.
the next one.
He's the next one.
And Nolan Arenado has taken back his trade request because apparently you can make the Hall of Fame playing at Coors Field.
Yeah.
So much for that story. Everything's fine. I'm kidding. We'll get to that story.
Larry did for Coors Field what Edgar Martinez did for DHs, man.
1991, Fergie Jenkins became the first Canadian ever inducted to the Hall of Fame from Chatham, Ontario. No position player prior to this moment from this country had pulled it off. Again, Larry Walker was not drafted. First contract with the Expos was $1,500, something to that effect.
$1,500.
From $1,500 to the Hall of Fame, and that I regret every summer weekend not being down there. Whether I have skin in the game or not, it is Cooperstown looks like one of the great weekends for me. That is going to be a party this summer. The Expos are moving in. There'll be Rocky fans there too, yada, yada, yada. But we know Expo Nation is still very strong, and the connection is deep, and that is going to be a hell of a party this summer.
There'll be a lot of beer drunk down there.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
And you know, what's amazing about the Larry Walker story is that, you know, you mentioned how he got signed, but if you consider the backstory or the chain of events that led to him getting signed and discovered, you know, he was on the verge of making the Regina Pats twice as their goaltender.
Hockey,
Bob Strum, the coach and general manager at the time, would later become the head of pro scouting for the Columbus Blue Jackets, cut him twice in training camp. And the second time, Larry Walker threw his pads in the corner, said, "I'm done," really frustrated. Ended up playing in an adult tournament. Only one scout was there from the Expos, and that leads to him signing, and all of a sudden, he's a Hall of Famer.